I'm here at the RYA Dinghy Show 2020 on the Harken stand with Luke Patience and Chris Grube, and this is a huge moment. It's 2020, we've got Tokyo 2020 right on the horizon. Luke, how does it feel now it's getting real?
Really exciting. I mean, the reality is it's a very unfamiliar territory, however many times you do the games. You know, this will be my third time, but that's still only 3 times my whole life. So, you know, the excitement's building. You know, I'm kind of now at the stage where I go to bed at night and there's a wee bit of butterflies when I think about it. So it's, in our world where we work in 4-year blocks, it's here now. You know, these next few weeks will pass like drop of a hat. So, yeah, I can't wait though. Can't wait.
Now, Chris, this is the time with those final preparations. It's just months to go. What have you got lined up in the run-up to the games?
I mean, we're lucky enough to have all our most of our equipment sorted. We've still got some final decisions to make, but that's currently the sort of decisions we're making. The real thing for us at the moment is the 470 class is becoming so physical that we're really upping our gym programs and time on the bike as well as sailing. So, you know, the stimulus in the boat you need more than that really. So we're really trying to add to it. So
now, Luke, Chris has just mentioned this whole physicality that's come into 470 sailing a lot recently. This must put huge strains on the boat, and reliability must be absolutely key for you, specifically when it comes to your deck hardware.
Yeah, I mean, you just cannot have things break. In our world, that's unacceptable. And same in, you know, things like flying airplanes. It's kind of unacceptable if things break because the consequences are so high. And for us, the consequences are massive. If we want to be able to go into a race course and know the only thing that will go wrong is our decisions, you know, when we make human errors. So to have that reliability, and crucially in the 470, low friction systems, it means we can be smarter with how we rig up the boat. We can access more parts of the sail and the centerboard and the rudder, you know, and all these things to make the boat work harder for us. So that's like paramount, and you know, and in a boat like a 470, that's such a win.
Now, Chris, you're competing at the very highest level, and it is just that goal, that Tokyo 2020 is your goal at the moment. But how do you maintain your enjoyment in that whole process?
I think really just trying to vary your training. So we don't necessarily go out and do the same things every day. We practice different things. Of course, you know, you might have something that you're focusing on at that point. But Luke and I are really good mates, and we have mates within the team as well. So, you know, often if we're feeling under-energized, then we'll tend to, you know, get the friends together and have a bit of fun. So, you know, generally that's it. It is quite a, you know, as a sport where you know, we spend a lot of time together. So, you know, you do have sort of mates that you hang out with and that. So
You'd hope so.
Yeah.
And Luke, aspiring sailors, they'll progress through the ranks, and early on they might have some great successes, but inevitably there are highs and lows in sailing. How do you manage that and just keep that whole motivation for sailing going?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, I think, well, firstly, it's probably different for everyone. You know, I know sort of how I try to think about it is, if you spend too much time emotionally attached to the result, I find that a really dangerous place to end up, because no matter what happens, you're as able to make bad decisions as good ones. You know, we are only humans. So the way I try to look at it is I try to find satisfaction in getting small processes right. It could be something as simple as, you know, the board is nicely polished, ready for that day, along with maybe a training session. We're working on tacking, we do the perfect tack. You know, it's the satisfaction in completing these small things and try and leave the result to take care of itself. Or if it's on a race day, we have such a strict morning routine up to the first race, and then after the first race is gone, the routine into the second race. So it's very clinical and businesslike, and if you get the process right and you find satisfaction in that, then it's sort of, you're kind of winning already, and inevitably it will convert into winning at the actual race anyway. So it's dangerous for me to think about the result too much. I have to find enjoyment in completing tasks, and that's a really uplifting feeling.
So really concentrating on the what you're doing rather than the end result of what will come out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of about being present. You know, whatever you're doing, do it with full heart and passion in that moment. And that's where I stop my mind drifting to think about, I want to stand on the top step of the podium with Twiggy and win. That doesn't ever come into my brain. It's doing the one thing you're doing at that time with full vigour, full heart, full passion, and do it perfectly. You know?
I think that's something that so many sailors coming up through the ranks could take on board and really take to heart. Yeah. Now, some of the Harken Blockheads have asked some questions that they'd really like to know the answers from. How do you mentally prepare yourself before a big race? Let's go for Chris with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think you generally have your processes that you go through on the beginning of a day. I think a lot of it for me is about routine and making sure that, you know, your bag's packed the night before, that you've eaten enough, for one, because, you know, like I said, it's pretty physical. So just getting enough food and drinking at the beginning of the day. But then also, you know, we sit down before we head out on the water, have a briefing. We talk about the Met for the day. You know, and just what we're going to expect on the water that day, and maybe think little things from the day before which you need to remember.
So taking confidence from the preparations you've done.
Yes, yeah, effectively, yeah. I mean, you know, we've prepared 3.5 years for this moment, so it's you know, it can be quite daunting, but like Luke said before, it's about coming back to those small things, the processes, for us, yeah.
Now, for Luke, what's your favourite sandwich?
I like, being a Scotsman, I like a haggis sandwich, you know, and usually a haggis is cooked the night before. It's not like a fresh haggis. It's that kind of slightly one day old, bit minging, you know. Get the bread nice and toasted, your haggis on.
A haggis sandwich.
Yeah. I have at home, not here in England or anywhere else in the world. But yeah, bit of mayo, bit of cracked pepper, beautiful.
Okay, as a Scotsman, I've definitely never had a haggis sandwich, but I think that's that's something that's really going to probably make this blockhead happy that they've asked that question. And so, Chris, what was the first boat you sailed as a junior?
Toppers was my first boat, but I before that, so GP14s, Fireballs with my dad, and then kind of started on the junior scene probably a little bit later than everyone else, but I'd really sort of found that love and enjoyment for the sport before I started my junior sailing. I think that's quite important, you know, to actually know why you're doing it.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
And Luke, how about you for that?
Well, yeah, I started in Oppies. I could still be in Oppies now because I'm the size of an Oppie sailor. But yeah, Oppies for me. But, you know, similar to Twigs, you know, our parents would take us. I've got photos of me in an old green 420 my dad had when I was sort of 3 years old, which I kind of don't really remember. But yeah, it was Oppies for me.
And if you were talking to a parent to ask them or to say to them one thing about making them become a sailor for life, what would you encourage them to do or to say to them to encourage their kids?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I love sailing, and my dad instilled in me just such a love of that, just going out and having the wind and the salt in your hair, and I, you know, I really enjoy the aspect of seeing the land from the water, because it's such a different perspective. It's really hard to describe that to someone who has stayed on land most of their life. When you go out and sailing for the first few times, you go, wow, look at, you know, and you see, oh, that's where I live, or that's where, you know, and the whole perspective's different. And I still get enjoyment from that now. Like, I love going to new venues and looking at the land from a few miles out to sea. So my dad really instilled the sort of adventure side of it, and I still love that now. I get distracted when we go to cool venue. We're meant to be doing business in the 470. I'm like, oh, you seen that hill over there? Or, you know, like, need to bring myself back to it. So for me, you're on an adventure the whole time on a boat. It's cool, man. You know, it's what we did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, you know, and we're still doing it now. So, yeah. It's one big adventure.
So let them just love sailing and everything to do with it.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, Luke, Chris, all the best in the run-up to 2020 and the Olympics. It's a huge year, and many thanks indeed, both of you, for your time.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, cheers.